Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me for the Fetch for Fosters live question and answer. Today, I wanted to bring your attention to a little blog that Mel Freer did on her blog, No Dog About It, and you can find that link somewhere to the side here to the article that she did. She interviewed me about the Fetch for Fosters program, so if you're looking for more information about what we do and how we do it and why, check out that blog from Mel. So let's get started with our questions. So our first one is, I have a toddler and a new foster dog along with my own personal dog. My own dog is 10 pounds and my foster is about 20 pounds. My 10-month-old toddler likes to try to pet the dogs and I tell her no and gentle if she's trying to grab them. And I tell her nice and gentle if she pets them. My personal dog has been growling at my baby when she's trying to push her toys through the bars of the kennel and when they're on the floor together. So how can I help my dogs and my children get along? Well, there's a lot going on here. You've got a small child, your own dog, and a foster dog. So there are some risks first that we should talk about when you have a foster dog in your home and you have kids. Foster dogs are unknown quantities. As rescues, we do our best to temperament test the dog in the shelter or in the home where they're being relinquished to us. But no temp test is perfect, and it gives us a picture of the dog, but it can't tell us everything about how that dog is going to behave. Sometimes behaviors can be hidden until a dog is in a new environment. Some behaviors we may or may not see because the dog is under a lot of stress. So it's very difficult, and a role of a really good foster home is to take in that foster dog and to give it some support and let him blossom, and then really see what are all the facets of that personality. The more you know a dog as a foster, the better you can place it with a home. Now, obviously this brings risks when you also have children in the family, because if the dog is not good with kids, you're asking for trouble. And it's hard, even if the rescue says, oh, the dog's great with kids, it was maybe based on one test and an artificial situation and really doesn't tell you everything about the dog. So it's risky. I prefer that people foster if they only have older kids, responsible kids, maybe 10 or 12 and older. If you do have smaller children, it's better to keep them separate from the foster dog. And always remember to supervise. So no matter what, if it's your foster dog or your own dog, you should always be actively watching when a child is interacting with a dog. We want to proactively make sure that interactions are going to be good and safe, and we're going to separate them before anything goes south. So even just leaving them in a room together for 5 seconds while you run in the other room, accidents can happen. That's when the child tries to hug the dog or something, and if the dog doesn't like it, the child might be bit, and so on. So it's really important to supervise. Now, in this case, it seems like we already have a dog that's growling at the child. So we would right away put in a management situation. So the dog is always going to be separate from the toddler, using baby gates or solid doors so that they never actually have access to each other. And it's better for these to be redundant. So it's 2 gates. Just in case the dog jumps over one, there is another barrier between him and the child. If it is your personal dog, there are ways to work on that relationship, especially when the child is older. But it's best that you work with a trainer who has experience with kids and dogs, who can help you choose appropriate exercises for your family and for your situation so that we can avoid having anything go wrong. Obviously, when there's children involved, our risk acceptance is much, much lower. We really don't tolerate much risk at all. So we want to be really careful. So I would make sure there's more than one safety measure to keep the dog separate from the child, so the dog or the kid's not putting any toys through the bars because the kid can't even reach the dog. So as far as interacting with your dog, oh, sorry, you said the personal dog is the one that's been growling. So then you'd probably want to have a trainer come in your home and help you with the dog that's growling. If the trainer so in general, if we're working with a dog that's friendly and good with kids, and we're building that relationship between kids and dogs, we teach them things like don't hug the dog. Dogs don't interpret hugging the same way that we do, and dogs don't really like hugging. And we should only have one hand on the pet at one time. Two is too many, so one hand is just enough, and two is too much. And children should only pet the dog when the dog is inviting attention. So if the dog walks up to the child and nudges them and basically is pushing for a pet, then the child can pet. Otherwise, the child shouldn't be going to the dog and invading his space. So we want the dog to be inviting the activity. And part of this is not magnetizing your children to dogs. So starting from when they're little, you don't need to be saying, oh, look, puppy, puppy, doggy. If the child is always taught that they're super exciting and they should go up to and pet it, when they start toddling on their own, they're going to get themselves into trouble. So a dog is to be respected. If they ask for attention, you can pet them, but don't magnetize your babies to the dogs. So keep that in mind, that we want to let the dog choose the interaction. We want to stop petting after a few seconds and ask the dog if that's enough. And this goes for kids as well as adults. So I would pet for a few seconds and then stop, and then let the dog walk away. So it's a really complex question, and I kind of touched on it from a bunch of different areas. My bottom line recommendation is that's a case where you would really want to get a good professional trainer out to your house, or a behavior consultant, because we really don't tolerate much risk with kids and dogs. It's better to get a professional on that one. Our next question is, I have a 9-month-old Labradoodle that always jumps up on me and strangers. I've tried teaching the dog off and pushing him down by putting my knee in his chest. I started teaching him to lay down when someone new comes over to him by stepping on his leash so that he can't jump. These aren't working super well. Is the jumping up on people something that he's going to grow out of? Well, jumping up on people tends to be self-reinforcing, meaning that the dog gets a reward, an internal reward, just for doing it. He finds it fun. He is probably greeting people in a way that he thinks is totally appropriate, that he might greet another dog, which is often by licking the face, and human faces are up here, so dogs tend to jump. He might grow out of it a little bit, because as he gets older, he might get less energy, but probably not. It's probably rewarding enough. It's probably not that much effort for him. And he's a Labradoodle, so he's probably going to have energy for a very, very, very long time. So it's better to teach him a more appropriate way to greet. One thing I like to do with these young exuberant dogs is actually let them say hi, but try to do it in a way that's not super exciting. So I'm not going to ignore the dog completely, but if I can safely, I might actually squat down and let him lick my hands, or put my hands over my face like this and let him lick my hands as though it's a snout, just 1 or 2 times, and then stand back up. With some dogs, this actually works really well because they get to greet in the way that they're compelled to greet, and then it's over. With your dog, this might not be the case. He might really like that jumping piece. So instead, we're going to teach him how to keep 4 paws on the floor. You can do this by teaching him to sit on a blanket. So first, reward often just for him being near a blanket. You can just toss treats on the blanket. If he knows sit and down, you can teach him sit and down on that blanket and reward it. You want to build this behavior so strongly so that if you put any blanket or towel on the floor, your dog runs to it and sits and says, hey, where's my cookie? So next what we do is introduce a person. So he's got his blanket where he knows the skill is sit, and now we're essentially adding a distraction, which is that new person. And you can reward a lot for him staying on his blanket and not jumping on that person. This is still going to be exciting, and it's going to be difficult, so you would want to repeat it a lot with the same person until he's successful with that one person. And then you can try it with a new person. So dogs don't generalize super well. We need to repeat training scenarios and in different situations so that they realize sit for Roger also means sit for Caitlin and sit for Mario. So you will have to do quite a bit of training to help him learn that he should sit still on his blanket for everybody. You might want to start out by you giving the treats so that you are more rewarding to the dog than the stranger, and move on later to the stranger giving treats. One thing that might help your dog stay down is if the stranger delivers the treat actually to the blanket instead of to the dog's face, because he might be compelled to jump. So try to deliver either quickly and down to his face, or even onto the ground to keep him there, all 4 feet on the ground. So that's one technique that can work really well. You might want to have a leash on just for safety in case you make a mistake so that he can't actually jump on that person. But try not to use the leash as a crutch. We don't actually want to be pulling the dog down if we can help it. If that happens, it means we've made a mistake, we've gone too fast, and we need to go backward in our training and train our dog a little bit better around that distraction. So I want to be telling him, yes, he did something right, and keep making it more challenging instead of telling him, no, that's not what you do. As far as the knee to the chest, there's some people who might have success with it. In general, there's a lot of dogs that think it's pretty fun, and sometimes it can even encourage the jumping up behavior because you're sort of roughhousing it and they enjoy it. So it's much better to teach the dog what to do. There's a lot of different techniques. Those are a couple that you might want to try and see which works best for your dog. And if you still need help, there's some other ones. You can send us another question, or have a trainer come out and help you work in person. Sometimes it's really just the mechanics that you need to be a bit quicker, because again, this is kind of a hard thing to train because it's so rewarding for the dog to jump up. We have to make sitting down much more rewarding, so that requires a bit of effort on our part. Our next question is, I have a 10-month-old dog that knows a bunch of tricks already and knows how to go in and out through the doggy door. The only problem is he barks all the time when he's in the yard, especially at nighttime. I don't know how to have him stop. Has anyone had an excessive barker and found a way to have him stop without a collar device? So that's a really great question. If at all possible, we want to avoid using a bark collar because we can have some unwanted side effects if we're using a shock collar or even a citronella collar. And the citronella collars, usually, some people might have some success, but the dog might also just learn to tolerate it and bark through it. And ultimately, we're not addressing the root cause, which is, why is your dog barking? We're just punishing him for doing it. So in this case, it sounds like he's barking when he's going out through his doggy door at night, and this is pretty common. Some dogs tend to be more barky in the evening. Maybe it's because they can't see as well, so they're more alert to sounds and whatnot. One easy way to work with this is to manage it and not give him access to the yard through the doggy door. Dog eaters can be great, but unsupervised, when our dog goes out in the yard without us, they can get in a lot of trouble. They can bark excessively. They can dig. They can decide to run the fence and bark at neighbors. So it's good to keep an eye on them and supervise them so that they don't get bored and decide to just amuse themselves doing normal doggy things that we think are obnoxious. So close the doggy door and take him out on a leash, or go out with him for his nightly potties. You can also actively work on the barking by going out with him, and if you both hear sounds that he might react to, before he gets a chance to bark, you can actually just feed him a treat. So you might say yes and feed, or you might just feed, so that he starts to associate those sounds, instead of being kind of scary, as something good, which means cookie from mom. So this is desensitization to the noises. We hear a noise and we feed. And if you repeat that a lot, your dog could eventually learn that the noise is not a big deal and he doesn't need to bark at it. Another way to work with this is if he starts barking and he doesn't quiet when asked, then he goes back in the house. So in that case, we are removing access to the yard. It's a timeout in the house, and if you're consistent with that, he could learn that way that he shouldn't bark excessively in the yard. So again, all of these methods are going to require that you're more involved with the situation and with the training, but you can have a lot of success, especially if you are super consistent. So be extremely consistent with these exercises, and find out why your dog's barking and which one's going to work the best, and it might be a combination of some. Next, we have a Jack Russell Beagle mix that is doing well with house training, but she is pooping in the house, and we can be outside for 2 hours, and she still waits until we get back inside to poop. So that sounds really frustrating. Who knows the reasons why some dogs like to poop in the house? It could be that they prefer carpet, or they prefer a certain corner. First of all, make sure that everything is really clean. So use an enzyme cleaner so that there's no remaining smells of other animals or other poop or pee that might be attracting your dog. It could be that she was punished for pooping in front of someone in the past. So for example, if you catch your dog pooping in the house and you scream and it startles her, she might actually not want to poop in front of you at all. So this is why actually when we're doing house training, I don't recommend that you punish your dog at all. You can interrupt gently and take them right outside if they're making a mistake. But I would never, I don't want to startle the dog, and I don't want to do anything negative, because I don't want my dog to refuse to go potty in front of me, because then when I take him out on leash, he's going to hold it. So what you're going to want to do with your Beagle is take her out to go potty. If she doesn't go and you go back in the house, then she has to be supervised 100%. This means either in her kennel, assuming that she's kennel trained and won't poop in there, or she has to be on a leash with you holding the leash so that you are paying really, really good attention. If you assume it's about time that she has to go potty, then you can wait 5 or 10 minutes and take her out again. If she doesn't poop, we're back in the house and the dog is supervised. And you're going to keep repeating the cycle until the dog finally just has to go and goes in front of you. And when that happens outside, you're going to give lots of treats, lots of praise, like one after another, hot dog, hot dog, hot dog, because that's really awesome. We really want her to be pooping outside, so make a big deal about it. A lot of rewards. So you're going to have to be really consistent with this so that she doesn't get the opportunity to make a mistake in the house anymore. And it might be quite a bit investment from you up front, especially if she was punished for pooping in someone's presence or on leash in front of someone. There's a couple of things you can try to make it easier. You can use a long line when you're outside so that your dog can get a little farther away from you. So instead of a 6-foot leash, you could be using a 30-foot leash so that you can still keep an eye on her. She's still safe, but she can get some more distance from you if that makes her more comfortable right now to poop, and you still want to reward the pooping. Another thing is exercise can make it, get the bowels moving and make it easier for the dog to go. So you might want to go for a walk and then try to go potty. And then if she doesn't, then she's back in her kennel or she's supervised, and then you're back out in 5 or 10 minutes to keep giving her another chance. So this will work. It's just another one of those situations where you really, really have to be super consistent with it. And it can be kind of frustrating for the people at first, but stick with it. Finally, it's worth mentioning that you can take her into the vet and just make sure that there are no medical issues or no pain issues that are discouraging her from actually going potty. She might just be holding it until she can't any longer if she's got some sort of pain. So have your vet check her out to make sure that there's no medical issues that are also affecting this. Our next question is, so I'm crate training my foster and wondering, do I let her whine or do I ignore her like she's not there? Last night she cried all night long. It was really hard. What can I do? So if you have a puppy that's under 12 or 14 weeks of age, then my opinion, and has worked out for really well for me and my fosters and a lot of clients, is that if they're very small, they can sleep in the bed with you at night for a while. When they are just that little baby, it's really scary to be alone. So I don't blame a dog for crying in her crate overnight when she's alone. It's actually not that hard to transition a puppy from sleeping in your bed to sleeping in the kennel next to your bed once they're just a few weeks older. So if they're really tiny, I say put them in your bed so that you can get some sleep, because you probably have to go to work in the morning. And then we'll do crate training during the day or during the weekends, and we'll definitely transition to the crate when the puppy's a little older. With fosters, we want to remember that chances are their new family might want to use that crate, so we want to give them the best chance possible, which includes crate training them for their new family. But just because the puppy's in the bed right now doesn't mean we can't move them to the crate very soon. And we can still do crate training concurrently, even if they're in the bed right now. So make sure, first of all, that the crate, when your dog is crated, that she's in a room that the family hangs out in. So if it's overnight and you're working on crate training overnight, the crate can be in your bedroom, at first next to the bed, so you can put your fingers in there and soothe the puppy if you need to. And then bit by bit, you can move the kennel away from the bed. So a little bit farther away until it's in the corner of the room. And if you have a dog that's really comfortable in the crate and you've been practicing this, eventually you can move the kennel out of the room. And most dogs are fine with that. So we'll start close to you in the room where the family is, and then eventually we'll move the kennel later to where it'll finally stay. But remember that dogs aren't going to be happy in a kennel if it's in the basement without any light, or if it's in a back room that nobody ever goes, in which case it sort of feels like they're banished every time they go to a crate. The crate should be in a room that they like, where the family hangs out, and leave it open during the day so that they can go in and out of the crate when they please and choose to nap in the crate. That's really important. With puppies and with older dogs, when we start crate training, we're only going to put them in for short periods of time. And we're going to give them something good, like a Kong or a marrow bone. And we're always going to let them out before they start whining or crying, before they get bored. So it'll probably start out with really small bits of time. And actually I have a video about crate training on the Fetch blog that I will put a link up to later. That's really helpful and gives a lot more tips. So if your dog is whining, you can try and ignore him for 10 minutes usually. Most dogs will quiet down after that and settle into chewing or take a nap. If it's going on for longer, and if your dog is starting to get really distressed, we want to avoid a panic attack. So in that case, let them out of the crate, and we will just decide to do better next time. But we would do more damage probably by letting them have a panic attack in the kennel. So in that case, let them out, and we'll try again. And next time we do the crate training, we'll do it for a shorter period of time. So with your puppy, if she's crying all night long, try putting her in your bed if she's really little, and then crate train during the day or on the weekend so that she's still learning to be in her kennel. Or if she's big enough to be in a kennel on her own, put the kennel next to your bed for a while so that she knows that you're there and she's soothed, and then move it away and away. What I do, if the puppy's having a panic attack and they're, and I need to sleep because I have to work in the morning, I'll take him out and I'll put him in the bed, and then we'll work on the crate training at another time. So it's really about independence. So I haven't had a hard time getting clients and getting my puppies to transition to being out of the bed later because they're older and they're more confident. So that piece you don't have to worry about. Okay, so our next question is, our challenge is a recall with Roofy. He knows his name, but he doesn't like coming when called. We're trying praise and treats, but that's not working. What can I do? So with coming when called, it's a really obviously important skill, and we want to train it so that, first of all, there's a few rules. We always want to reward coming when called and when the dog comes to us. So if I call the dog and he runs away, does something else, and eventually calls to me, I'm still going to praise him because he actually came to me. I would make a big mistake if I punished him when he came to me. Yes, it wasn't perfect or maybe the way that I wanted it to, but I never want my dog to ever have to question that when he comes to me, it's going to be good or bad. And this could be a life-saving piece. When he comes to me, he's a good dog and he gets praise. So always make sure that no matter what, when he comes to you, when he chooses to be by you, that it's positive. The second rule is only call him when you know that he will come to you. So if there's something really distracting going on and you're really not sure if your dog's going to come, don't call. Go get him, get closer, get rid of the distraction, and then call him. So we're always going to work up to more challenging situations, and we're going to start really easy. So if Rufus isn't coming when called, try playing the game just in one room of your house or just in one hallway where there's nothing really else exciting to do. And once he's got that done, you can add another room, or then you can move to the backyard and practice it. And this should be in kind of dull environments. And once he's got that, then you can start adding more activity. So that means maybe someone else in your family is now walking around and being distracting, holding a piece of food in their hand or bouncing a ball. So you want to systematically ask him to come in more distracting environments. The other thing is you can have him wear a long line so that if he totally ignores you, your long line attached to a harness, you can pick it up and you can gently reel him in. And what that's doing is preventing him from accessing other reinforcement on his own. The reinforcement should be that you're giving him treats or praise or toys when he comes to you. We want to prevent him from reinforcing himself by going to sniff something else or find a toy on his own or do something else that basically he self-rewards. So I can use that line. If I made a mistake in my training and he's not coming, I can use the long line to prevent him from self-rewarding. And then my next trial, I will maybe make it a little easier so that we can be successful, or I'll change something in the environment. Maybe I set him up to fail because it was too distracting, or he was too tired, so he's having a hard time focusing and whatnot. So our rules are only call the dog for only praise the dog and reward the dog and reinforce the dog when he does come, no matter what. Only call him in situations that you think he's ready for, and work up systematically to build the recall. Another piece is that I never want to call the dog for something negative. So if I'm doing a nail trim or a bath or getting in the car and he doesn't like any of those things, I'm not going to call him. I'm just going to go to him and clip on a leash and bring him to what he needs to do. I don't want to poison my recall cue. So practice makes perfect. Remember, start small and manage your distractions and manage your dog's energy level. If he's really tired, he's not going to be able to focus really well. So small, short, and sweet training sessions are going to be your key, and practice a lot throughout the day. And you can use his regular meals to work on coming when called. So he can eat his breakfast by running back and forth in between two people who are coming him when called. So that just about wraps up our time already. I wanted to mention one more thing. We are not doing the live Q&A in 2 weeks like we normally would, because there is an event at Twin Cities Obedience Training Club on Sunday the 19th. So I want you to come hang out with me and with 3 other fabulous trainers, Inga Fromm, Sarah Rushi, and Kate Anders. And the 4 of us are going to be presenting an all-day workshop aimed at rescue workers, shelter workers, fosters, and other dog enthusiasts. So we're going to cover a lot of topics that are designed to help you. And of course, there will be time for questions there. So I hope to see you, and then we'll be back with our regular Q&A 2 weeks after that. Thanks for watching.